The Endeavour glided through the inky blackness of space, its sleek hull reflecting the distant starlight as it approached the mysterious planet Zalasia Prime. For Captain Julian Masters, this was the culmination of years of preparation, countless simulations, and the collective hopes of humanity. The first manned mission to another star system, the stakes couldn't be higher. "Approaching orbit, Captain," announced Lieutenant Alina Vega, her fingers dancing across the control panels. The bridge was a hive of activity, with the crew monitoring every system, making sure everything was perfect for their historic descent. "Steady as she goes, Lieutenant," Julian replied, his voice calm but with a tinge of excitement. His eyes were fixed on the planet displayed on the large view screen. Zalasia Prime was unlike any world they had seen before. It was a vibrant blue-green orb, with vast continents covered in lush, alien forests, and oceans that shimmered like liquid sapphire. Strange cloud formations swirled across the atmosphere, glowing with an ethereal light. "Captain, we're detecting numerous life forms on the surface," said Dr. Evelyn Grace, the ship's chief scientist. Her voice filled with awe as she studied the readings. "The biodiversity here is incredible, unlike anything on Earth. This planet is teeming with life." Julian nodded, absorbing the gravity of the moment. "All right, people, let's make history. Prepare for landing." The Endeavour descended through the atmosphere, buffeted by winds that carried the scent of unknown flora. As the ship touched down on a broad grassy plain near a crystalline lake, the crew couldn't help but marvel at their surroundings. The sky was a deep cerulean blue, with two suns casting a warm golden light over the landscape. Giant, luminescent trees towered around them, their leaves glowing softly in the twilight. Julian and his team exited the ship, their boots sinking slightly into the soft, moss-covered ground. The air was filled with the hum of alien insects and the distant calls of unseen creatures. It was a world full of wonder, yet eerily silent, as if the planet itself was holding its breath in anticipation. "Stay alert, everyone," Julian cautioned. "We don't know what's out there." As they ventured further from the ship, the crew came upon a clearing surrounded by flowers that seemed to pulse with light, changing colors with each passing second. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble, and a low, melodious hum filled the air. "Captain, look!" shouted Lieutenant Vega, pointing toward the edge of the clearing. From the dense forest emerged figures, tall, graceful beings with iridescent skin that shimmered like opals. Their eyes, large and luminous, seemed to contain the mysteries of the cosmos, and their movements were fluid, almost like they were gliding over the ground rather than walking. They wore simple, flowing garments that appeared to be woven from the light itself. The crew instinctively raised their weapons, but Julian quickly signaled for them to lower them. "No sudden moves," he ordered, stepping forward cautiously. "We come in peace." The lead figure, a female who radiated an aura of calm and wisdom, approached Julian. Her voice, when she spoke, was a harmonious blend of sounds that resonated within Julian's mind, even as she spoke in an alien tongue. "Do you understand us?" Julian asked, his voice steady despite the rapid beating of his heart. The alien woman tilted her head, her eyes locking onto Julian's. A wave of warmth washed over him as her thoughts touched his, bridging the gap between their species. "Yes, we understand you," she replied, her voice now clear in his mind. "I am Ishara, a seer of my people. We have been expecting you, Julian Masters." Julian was taken aback. "You knew we were coming?" "Yes," Ishara confirmed, her tone gentle. "We have watched your kind from afar, curious about your journey through the stars. You are the first to reach our world." The other Zalasians, as Julian would later learn they were called, gathered around, their gazes filled with curiosity and a hint of something more, anticipation perhaps. They communicated with each other through a combination of melodic sounds and telepathic impressions, a seamless blend that Julian found both fascinating and unnerving. Ishara stepped closer, her gaze never leaving Julian's. "You are different from the others," she said, her eyes narrowing slightly, as if she were trying to peer into his very soul. "There is something within you, a power that is unique among your kind." Julian felt a strange sensation at her words, like a soft pulse of energy within him. "I'm just a man," he replied cautiously, unsure of what she was sensing. Nothing more. Ishara's lips curved into a small, enigmatic smile. We shall see. Show me what that thing between your legs does. The bluntness of her request caught Julian completely off guard. He stammered, struggling to find words. What? What do you mean? Ishara's expression remained serene, her curiosity genuine. In our culture, we explore and understand all aspects of our existence, including those that are hidden or private to others. I can sense that what you keep hidden is a source of great energy, and I wish to understand it. Julian's mind raced. He wasn't sure if this was some kind of test, a cultural misunderstanding, or something far more dangerous. The crew behind him shifted uncomfortably, aware that this situation was rapidly spiraling out of their control. That's not something we usually just show, Julian managed to say, trying to navigate the delicate situation. Humans are private about certain things. Ishara tilted her head, her glowing eyes narrowing as she processed his words. Private? She repeated, as if tasting the unfamiliar concept. In our world, there is nothing private. We share everything, our thoughts, our feelings, our energies. To hide something is to diminish its value. Julian realized he was treading on thin ice. He needed to explain without offending their hosts or jeopardizing the mission. It's not about hiding, Ishara, he said carefully. It's about choice. We choose who to share certain things with, especially when it comes to our bodies. It's a sign of trust, respect, and intimacy. Ishara seemed to ponder his words, her eyes softening slightly. I see. Your ways are different from ours. But I am still curious, Julian. Perhaps in time you will choose to share this with me, and we can understand each other better. Julian nodded, relieved that she was willing to let the matter rest, for now. Perhaps. But for now, let's focus on learning about each other's cultures in other ways. Ishara smiled again, this time with genuine warmth. Agreed. There is much we can learn from one another, Captain Julian Masters. Welcome to Zalatia Prime. With that, Ishara gestured to the others, and the Zalatians began to move through the clearing, inviting the crew to explore and learn about their world. As Julian followed, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a turn into the unknown. The curiosity and subtle intensity in Ishara's eyes hinted at a connection far deeper than mere first contact, and deep down, he wondered if he was ready for what that connection might reveal. The days on Zalatia Prime were long, each one stretching into what felt like an eternity under the dual suns that bathed the planet in a perpetual golden glow. Julian Masters and his crew had settled into a routine, their initial awe slowly giving way to the realities of exploration. The Zalatians were hospitable, guiding the humans through their world, sharing their knowledge and customs. Yet there was always a sense of something more, a deeper, unspoken connection between Julian and Ishara that lingered in the air. Ishara visited Julian daily, her presence both comforting and unsettling. She seemed to know exactly when to appear, as if drawn to him by an invisible force. Her curiosity about human physiology, particularly Julian's, never waned. She asked questions that delved into the nature of humanity, what it meant to be human, to love, to feel pain and joy. But beneath these questions lay her persistent interest in what she called the energy within him. One evening, as the sky shifted from gold to a deep indigo, Julian sat by the crystalline lake, lost in thought. The events of the past few days had been overwhelming. He had learned so much about the Zalatians, their culture, their abilities, their connection to the planet, but he still struggled to understand Ishara's fascination with him. It was more than just curiosity. It was as if she was searching for something within him that he himself didn't fully grasp. Your thoughts are troubled, Ishara's voice, soft and melodic, broke through his reverie. She appeared beside him, her iridescent skin glowing softly in the fading light. Julian looked up at her, offering a weary smile. There's just so much to take in. Your world, your people. It's incredible, but it's also a lot to process. Ishara sat beside him, her presence calming. I understand. Your journey has brought you far from home, into a world that is strange and unfamiliar. But I sense that it's not just our world that troubles you. There is something within you that you are afraid to confront." Julian frowned, unsure of what she meant. "I'm not sure I follow." Ishara reached out, her hand gently resting on his chest, just above his heart. A warmth spread from her touch, radiating through his body. "There is an energy within you, Julian. It is strong, but it is locked away, contained. Your people, humans, as you call yourselves, seem to fear this energy. You hide it, control it, rather than embracing it." Julian felt a pulse of something, an almost electric sensation coursing through him. It was as if Ishara's touch was unlocking something deep within, something he hadn't even known was there. "What do you mean by energy? Are you talking about emotions or something else?" Ishara's eyes gleamed with understanding. "Emotions are a part of it, but it is more than that. It is your life force, your essence. In our culture, we do not separate our physical forms from our energy. They are one and the same. We allow our energy to flow freely, to connect with others, to heal, to create. But you keep yours contained, restrained." Julian was silent, trying to process what she was saying. He had always prided himself on his self-control, his ability to keep his emotions in check, especially in the high-stakes environment of space exploration. But now he was beginning to wonder if that control was actually limiting him, holding him back from something greater. "I don't know if I can just let go like that," Julian admitted, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "Humans are taught to control their emotions, to keep them in check. It's part of what makes us, well, human." Ishara smiled gently. "Perhaps that is true, but it is also what keeps you from fully understanding your potential. I can help you, Julian. I can show you how to unlock that energy, how to let it flow freely. But you must be willing to trust me, to let go of your fear." Julian looked into her eyes, seeing the sincerity there, the genuine desire to help. But he also saw something else, something deeper, almost primal, a connection that went beyond words, beyond thoughts. It was as if she was offering him a glimpse into a world he had never imagined, a world where the boundaries between physical and spiritual were blurred, where power and connection were one and the same. "How do we start?" Julian asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ishara's smile widened, and she took his hand in hers. "Close your eyes, Julian. Breathe deeply. Feel the air around you, the energy of this world. Let it flow into you, through you." Julian did as she instructed, closing his eyes and focusing on his breathing. The air around him seemed to thrum with life, with energy. He could feel the warmth of Ishara's hand in his, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, the gentle breeze that caressed his skin. But as he concentrated, he began to feel something else, a pulse of energy deep within him. Faint at first, but growing stronger with each breath. "That's it." Ishara's voice was a soft whisper in his mind. "Don't fight it. Let it flow." Julian felt the energy within him rising, like a wave building in strength. It was exhilarating, yet terrifying. He could feel it coursing through his veins, filling him with a power he had never known. His senses sharpened, his awareness expanded, and for a brief moment, he felt as if he could touch the very fabric of the universe. But with that power came a flood of emotions, joy, fear, desire, anger, all swirling within him, threatening to overwhelm him. He could feel the connection between himself and Ishara growing stronger, their energies intertwining, becoming one. "It's too much," Julian gasped, struggling to maintain control. "I can't. Don't fight it," Ishara urged, her voice soothing. "Let it flow. Trust me." Julian tried to relax, to let go of the fear, but the intensity of the experience was overwhelming. He could feel the energy building to a crescendo, and then, just as suddenly as it began, it exploded outward, a burst of light and heat that left him gasping for breath. When he opened his eyes, the world around him had changed. Colors were brighter, sounds were sharper, and he could feel the pulse of life all around him, the trees, the water, the very air itself. He could feel Ishara's presence beside him, not just physically, but as a part of his very being. What happened?" Julian asked, his voice trembling with awe and fear. Ishara looked at him with a mixture of pride and satisfaction. "You have taken the first step, Julian. You have awakened the energy within you, and now you can begin to understand what it truly means to be connected to the universe." Julian was silent, still reeling from the experience. He could feel the energy within him, still flowing, still pulsing with life. But there was something else, an awareness, a connection to the world around him that he had never felt before. It was as if a door had been opened, and he was standing on the threshold of something vast and unknown. But even as he marveled at the sensation, a part of him was afraid. He had unlocked something powerful, something that he barely understood, and with that power came a responsibility, a burden that he wasn't sure he was ready to bear. "What does this mean?" Julian asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "What happens now?" Ishara's gaze was steady, her expression serene. "Now we continue. There is much to learn, much to explore. But know this, Julian, this is only the beginning. The power within you is great, but it must be tempered, controlled. Together, we can unlock its full potential. But you must be willing to embrace the journey, to let go of your fears and trust in the connection we share." Julian nodded, though his mind was still swirling with questions, with doubts. He had taken the first step into a new world, a world where the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual were blurred, where power and connection were one and the same. But even as he embraced this new reality, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on the edge of something vast and dangerous. As the two of them sat by the lake, the light of the twin suns fading into twilight, Julian knew that his life had been forever changed. The connection between him and Ishara was growing stronger, pulling him deeper into the mysteries of Zalatia Prime, into a world of power and potential that he could barely comprehend. And deep down, he knew that there was no turning back. The awakening had begun, and with it, a journey that would take him to the very limits of his humanity and beyond. The days following Julian's awakening were a blur of intense emotions and newfound abilities. The connection with Ishara had opened his senses to the world in ways he had never imagined. He could feel the pulse of Zalatia Prime beneath his feet, the hum of life in every plant and creature, and most astonishingly, the energy that flowed through his own body. It was as if he had been blind his entire life and was now seeing for the first time. But with this new awareness came an overwhelming sense of responsibility and fear. Julian could sense that his humanity was slipping away, replaced by something else, something more primal and powerful. He was becoming more attuned to the energy within him, but each step forward felt like a step away from the man he had always been. The crew of the Endeavor noticed the changes in Julian almost immediately. His demeanor had shifted. He was quieter, more introspective, and his presence seemed to command a subtle, almost magnetic authority. His interactions with the Zalatians grew more frequent, especially with Ishara, and the crew began to worry that their captain was becoming too entangled with the alien culture. Dr. Evelyn Grace was the first to confront Julian about her concerns. She had observed the changes in him with growing unease, and as the ship's chief scientist and medical officer, she felt it was her duty to ensure the well-being of her captain. "Julian, we need to talk," she said, approaching him as he stood near the edge of the lake, gazing out at the shimmering water. The setting sun cast long shadows across the landscape, the two suns dipping low on the horizon. Julian turned to her, his expression calm but distant. "What's on your mind, Evelyn?" She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "You've changed, Julian. Since we arrived on this planet, you're different. The others have noticed it too. We're all concerned about you." Julian smiled faintly, but there was a sadness in his eyes. "I know I've changed, Evelyn. It's hard to explain, but the connection I've made with Ishara, it's opened my eyes to things I never knew existed. This energy, it's like nothing I've ever experienced, but I'm still me." "Are you?" Evelyn asked, her voice soft but firm. "You've been spending more time with Ishara and the Zalatians than with your own crew. We don't understand what's happening to you, and frankly, I'm not sure you do either." Julian sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not something I can easily explain. This planet, these people, they've shown me a side of the universe that we've never imagined. They see the world in a way that's completely different from us. I'm just trying to understand it. Evelyn stepped closer, her concern deepening. Julian, I've been monitoring your vitals. Your body is changing. I don't know how or why, but you're not entirely human anymore. Your cells are different. They're adapting to something, but I don't know what. I'm worried that if you keep going down this path, you won't be able to come back. Julian looked at her, the weight of her words sinking in. He had felt the changes within himself, the enhanced senses, the increased strength, the ability to manipulate the energy around him, but he hadn't fully grasped the implications. Was he losing himself? Was this newfound power worth the risk of losing his humanity? I appreciate your concern, Evelyn, Julian said finally, but this is something I need to see through. There's so much we don't know about the universe, about ourselves. If this energy can help us understand more, then I have to pursue it. Evelyn shook her head, frustration mingling with fear. And what if it destroys you, Julian? What if it turns you into something unrecognizable? Julian didn't have an answer for her. The fear gnawed at him, but so did the desire to understand, to explore the full potential of what he had discovered. I have to believe that this is leading somewhere important, Evelyn. I can't just walk away. Before Evelyn could respond, a sudden rush of wind swept through the clearing, and Ishara appeared beside Julian, her presence as serene and powerful as ever. She sensed the tension between the two humans and addressed Evelyn with a calm yet commanding tone. Dr. Grace, I understand your concerns, Ishara said, her voice carrying an almost musical quality. But Julian's path is one that he must walk. The connection we share is not one of dominance or control. It is a journey of mutual discovery. He is learning about our world just as we are learning about his. Evelyn's eyes narrowed slightly. And what is he becoming, Ishara? He's changing, and I'm not sure it's for the better. Ishara turned her gaze to Julian, her expression softening. He is becoming what he was meant to be, a bridge between our worlds, a being who can unite the knowledge of humanity with the energy of Zalacia. But this is not a transformation that comes without challenges. Julian felt a surge of warmth from Ishara, a reassurance that both comforted and unsettled him. He knew she believed in the potential of their connection, but he couldn't shake the fear that Evelyn's words had stirred within him. We've already received word from Earth, Evelyn said, her voice strained. They're expecting a full report, and they're going to want answers about what's happening to you. This isn't just about you, Julian. The entire mission, the future of humanity's exploration of the stars, it's all on the line. Julian looked out over the lake, the shimmering water reflecting the fading light of the suns. He knew Evelyn was right. This wasn't just about him. It was about something much larger. But even as he acknowledged the responsibility, he couldn't ignore the pull of the unknown, the desire to see where this path would lead. Before he could respond, a deep, resonant sound echoed through the air, a sound that vibrated in his very bones. Julian's heart skipped a beat as he recognized it as the call of the Zalatian Council, the ruling body of the planet. They had summoned him. Ishara's expression grew serious. The Council wishes to speak with you, Julian. They have sensed the changes within you, and they are concerned. Evelyn's worry deepened. This could be dangerous, Julian. We don't know what the Council is capable of. Julian nodded, his resolve hardening. I need to go. This is something I can't avoid. Evelyn reached out, her hand grasping his arm. Julian, please be careful. Remember who you are. Don't let them take that from you. Julian squeezed her hand reassuringly before turning to Ishara. I'm ready. Ishara nodded and placed a hand on his shoulder. In an instant, the world around them shifted, the landscape blurring as they were transported to the heart of the Zalatian city. The city was a marvel of organic architecture, with structures that seemed to grow naturally from the ground, their walls shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. The streets were filled with Zalatians going about their daily lives, their forms glowing with the energy that flowed through everything on the planet. But as Julian and Ishara arrived, the city fell silent, the citizens turning to watch them with a mix of curiosity and concern. The council chamber was a vast circular room at the center of the city, its walls lined with intricate carvings that told the story of the Zalatian people. At the center of the chamber sat the council, 5 elder Zalations, their forms larger and more imposing than the others, their skin glowing with an intensity that made it difficult to look directly at them. Julian could feel their eyes on him, probing, questioning. He felt exposed, as if they could see into the very depths of his soul. "Julian Masters," the central elder spoke, his voice a deep, resonant tone that filled the chamber. "You have walked a path that few of your kind have ever known. You have touched the energy of our world, and it has begun to change you. This is not something we take lightly." Julian straightened, meeting the elder's gaze. "I didn't ask for this, but now that it's started, I want to understand it. I want to learn what this energy means, for me and for my people." The elder nodded slowly, as if considering his words. "There is great potential within you, Julian Masters, but there is also great danger. The energy that flows through you now is powerful, but it is not meant for your kind. If you cannot control it, it will consume you, and in doing so, it could bring harm to all who are connected to you." Julian felt a chill run down his spine. "What must I do?" The elder's eyes glowed brighter, and the chamber seemed to hum with energy. "You must undergo the trial of integration. It is a test that will determine whether you can control the power within you, or whether it will control you. If you succeed, you will gain knowledge and abilities beyond anything you have known. But if you fail, you will be lost, and the connection between our worlds will be severed." Julian felt the weight of the challenge before him. The trial of integration, whatever it was, would determine not just his fate, but the fate of humanity's relationship with the Zalations. "I accept the trial," Julian said, his voice steady. The elder nodded, and the chamber was filled with a low hum, the carvings on the walls glowing with a soft light. "The trial will begin at dawn. Prepare yourself, Julian Masters, for what lies ahead." Ishara stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "I will guide you through this, Julian, but you must trust me completely." Julian nodded, feeling the gravity of what was to come. The journey he had begun was about to reach a critical point, one that would determine not just his own fate, but the future of both worlds. He could feel the energy within him, pulsing, waiting, as if eager for the trial to begin. As the chamber emptied and the night fell over Zalatia Prime, Julian couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on the precipice of something vast and unknowable. The forbidden knowledge that he sought was within reach, but at what cost? The dawn would bring answers, but it would also bring the greatest challenge of his life, a challenge that could either elevate him to new heights or destroy him entirely. And as he stood in the silent city, he knew that whatever happened next would change everything. As the first light of dawn broke over Zalatia Prime, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The trial of integration was an ancient and revered process, a test of will and strength that few had undergone. Julian Masters stood at the edge of a sacred clearing, deep within the heart of the Zalatian forest, surrounded by towering trees that pulsed with an ethereal glow. Their bioluminescent leaves cast shifting patterns of light across the ground, creating an almost hypnotic effect. Ishara stood beside him, her presence a calming force amidst the tension that crackled in the air. She had spent the night preparing Julian for what was to come, guiding him through meditative exercises and sharing with him the history and significance of the trial. "The trial of integration is not just a test of your strength, Julian," Ishara had explained, her voice filled with a mixture of pride and concern. "It is a test of your soul. The energy within you is powerful, but it is also wild, untamed. The trial will force you to confront that energy, to master it, or be consumed by it." Julian had listened intently, absorbing her words and the weight of what lay ahead. The journey that had begun with curiosity and a desire to explore had led him to this moment, a moment where his very humanity would be put to the ultimate test. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, the Zalatian Council arrived, their forms shimmering with an intensity that seemed to resonate with the rising sun. They formed a circle around Julian and Ishara, their expressions solemn and focused. The central elder, the one who had spoken to Julian the day before, stepped forward. His presence was commanding, his gaze piercing. Julian Masters, you stand at the threshold of a great transformation. The trial of integration is a rite of passage, one that few have undertaken and fewer still have completed. The energy within you is powerful, but it is not meant for your kind. If you succeed, you will become something more. A bridge between our worlds, a being capable of harnessing the power of both human and Zalatian. But if you fail, you will be lost to us, and the connection between our worlds will be severed. Julian met the elder's gaze, his resolve unwavering. I understand. I am ready. The elder nodded, and with a wave of his hand, the clearing around them began to shift and change. The ground beneath Julian's feet trembled, and the trees around them seemed to grow taller, their branches intertwining to form a canopy that blocked out the light. The air grew thick with energy, a palpable force that made Julian's skin tingle. The trial will begin now, the elder announced, his voice echoing through the clearing. You must confront the energy within you, face your deepest fears, and find the strength to control the power that lies dormant inside. Only then will you be truly integrated. As the elder spoke, the energy around Julian intensified, swirling around him like a storm. He could feel it pressing in on him, testing him, searching for weaknesses. He closed his eyes, focusing on his breathing, on the techniques Ishara had taught him. Remember, Julian, Ishara's voice whispered in his mind. You are not alone. I am with you, and so is the energy of this world. Trust in the connection we share. Julian took a deep breath and opened his eyes. The world around him had changed. He was no longer standing in the clearing, but in a vast, empty void. The darkness stretched out in all directions, endless and suffocating. But within that darkness, he could see flickers of light, tiny sparks that danced and flickered, calling to him. He took a step forward, and the void seemed to shift and ripple in response. The sparks of light grew brighter, forming a path that led deeper into the darkness. Julian followed the path, his footsteps echoing in the silence. As he walked, the sparks of light began to take shape, forming images, memories from his life. He saw himself as a child, playing in the fields near his home. He saw his parents, their faces etched with pride as he graduated from the academy. He saw the moments of triumph and loss that had shaped him into the man he was today. But as he continued, the images grew darker, more twisted. He saw the faces of those he had lost, the crewmates who had died on missions, the friends who had drifted away, the family he had left behind. He felt their pain, their sorrow, their anger. The emotions hit him like a wave, threatening to drag him down into the darkness. This is the first test, a voice echoed in his mind, Ishara's voice, guiding him. You must confront your past, your fears, and your regrets. You must find peace with them, or they will consume you. Julian clenched his fists, fighting against the tide of emotions. The pain was real, the loss palpable, but he knew he couldn't let it control him. He had made his choices, lived his life with purpose, and accepted the consequences. The energy within him flared in response, pushing back against the darkness. I am not defined by my past, Julian said aloud, his voice steady. I am defined by my choices, by the path I choose to walk. The darkness around him seemed to shudder, the images of his past fading into nothingness. The sparks of light grew brighter, forming a new path, one that led deeper into the void. As he continued forward, the second test revealed itself. The darkness shifted, forming into monstrous shapes, creatures of shadow and flame, their eyes burning with malice. They lunged at him, their forms shifting and twisting, trying to break through his defenses. But Julian stood his ground. He could feel the energy within him, pulsing, waiting to be unleashed. He reached out with his mind, calling upon the power that Ishara had helped him awaken. The energy surged through him, flowing out of his body in waves of light and heat. The creatures recoiled, their forms disintegrating under the force of his power. But more came, each one more powerful than the last. Julian fought them off, his energy growing with each victory, but he knew he couldn't keep this up forever. The power within him was strong, but it was also wild, untamed. If he lost control, it could consume him. This is the second test, Ishara's voice echoed once more. You must learn to control the energy within you. It is a part of you, but it is not your master. You must be the one to wield it, to shape it, or it will destroy you. Julian focused, drawing the energy back into himself, containing it within his body. The power resisted, surging against his control, but he held firm. He could feel it pushing at the edges of his mind, trying to break free, but he refused to let it. "I am in control," Julian whispered, his voice filled with determination. "This power is mine to command, not the other way around." The energy settled within him, no longer wild and chaotic, but calm and steady. The creatures of shadow and flame vanished, leaving him alone in the void once more. As he took a step forward, the void around him began to shift, the darkness giving way to light. He could see the clearing ahead, the Zalatian council waiting for him, their forms glowing with approval. But before he could reach them, the final test appeared. The light around him twisted, forming into a figure, a mirror image of himself. This Julian was different, though. His eyes burned with the same energy that Julian had just learned to control, but there was no restraint, no humanity left in them. "You think you've won?" the doppelganger sneered, his voice cold and mocking. "You think you can control this power? It will consume you, just like it consumed me." Julian stared at the figure, his heart pounding. This was the final test, the ultimate confrontation. He was facing the darkest part of himself, the part that had been seduced by the power, the part that had lost sight of who he truly was. "I am not you," Julian said, his voice firm. "I am not defined by this power. I am more than that." The doppelganger laughed, a cruel, hollow sound. "You're fooling yourself. This power will corrupt you, just like it did to me. You can't fight it." Julian shook his head, his resolve hardening. "You're wrong. I have seen what this power can do, but I also know that it doesn't define me. I am more than this energy, more than this power. I am human, and that is what gives me the strength to control it." The figure snarled, lunging at Julian with a ferocity born of desperation. But Julian didn't flinch. He called upon the energy within him, not to attack, but to protect, to shield himself from the darkness. The light within him flared, pushing the doppelganger back, dissolving its form into nothingness. As the figure vanished, the light around Julian grew brighter, enveloping him in warmth and peace. He could feel the energy within him, no longer wild and untamed, but calm and controlled. It was a part of him now, integrated into his very being. When the light finally faded, Julian found himself back in the clearing, the Zalatian council standing before him. Ishara was at his side, her eyes filled with pride and relief. "You have succeeded, Julian Masters," the elder said, his voice filled with respect. "You have faced the trials and emerged victorious. The energy within you is now a part of you, but it is no longer a threat. You have become something more, a bridge between our worlds, a being capable of harnessing the power of both human and Zalatian." Julian nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace and understanding. He could feel the energy within him, but it no longer threatened to overwhelm him. It was a part of him now, a tool to be used, not a burden to be feared. "You have passed the trial of integration," the elder continued, "and with that you have earned our trust and our respect. You are now one of us, Julian Masters, a true citizen of Zalatia Prime." Julian felt a wave of emotion wash over him. He had succeeded, not just in the trial, but in something much greater. He had found a way to unite the power of Zalatia with his humanity, to become something more than either alone. Ishara stepped forward, her eyes shining with emotion. "You did it, Julian. I knew you could." Julian smiled, his heart swelling with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Ishara. You showed me the way." As the dawn broke fully over Zalatia Prime, bathing the clearing in golden light, Julian knew that his journey was far from over. He had become something new, something powerful, but he also knew that this was just the beginning. There were still so many mysteries to uncover, so many challenges to face. But for the first time, he felt truly ready. He was no longer just an explorer, just a man. He was a bridge between worlds, a being of both human and Zalatian, and he would use that power to explore the universe, to protect those he cared about, and to bring about a new era of understanding and cooperation between species. As the Zalatians bowed in respect and the suns rose higher in the sky, Julian felt a profound sense of purpose and clarity. The new dawn had come, and with it, a new chapter in his life, one filled with limitless possibilities. And as he looked at Ishara, standing beside him with a smile that spoke of shared triumph and the promise of more adventures to come, he knew that whatever the future held, he was ready to face it,